Hello, hi. I just wanted to make another quick video, this time on vectors. I'm just going to talk quickly. It's not going to be a lot in depth or very long. I'm just going to talk a little bit about it as an introduction. Vectors are R's basic, kind of like the basic data structure in a way. And we talked about objects before, and so vectors are also kind of you can assign them as objects. So if we just say x is a vector, and to make a vector you just use this C and open bracket, close it, and you can just maybe type in, this is probably the most straightforward way to make a vector. And vectors, if we just look at that, it's basically just a string of numbers, not string as in character string, but it's just basically a bunch of numbers strung together in sequence like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're a lot like, well, conceptually they're very similar to or identical to the vectors you learn in math. So they have elements within them, but it's not like they have scalars or anything, but it's just a way to store data in a way. But these are vectors, and vectors you can do maths with them, so you can have x multiplied by 2, for instance, and it'll return the whole vector, each element within a vector multiplied by that multiplier, the 2 that we multiplied by. And the basic structure of vectors is that you have these values stored in these elements. So vectors are elements, have elements, and this one has, obviously this one has 5 elements in it, and that's the length of the whole vector is 5, and each of these units are called elements. And what you might have come across is you can index elements. So if you say I want to access the first element of this vector in the value of 1, right? So it will return that. And let's say I want to return the second value, and it's 2. And another way, let's say we want to make a different way. So if you can sequence, this is a function called sequence 1 to 10 at an interval of, no, let's do 11 to 20, interval 1, and y is from 11 to 20. So the reason I wanted to do it this way is because because x is from 1 to 5, so it can get a bit confusing about each of the elements because the numbers within are the same as the index. But so if we say we want to access the first element of y, then it returns 11 because, as you'd see, we sequenced from 11 to 20. And then so here, if we access the second one, it'll be 12. And you can actually access, like, let's say 1 to 6 and return the first 6 elements within this vector y. You can also just access specific ones. So let's say we want to access 2, 3, and 7. Yes. Then I'll return 12, 13, and 17 because that's just basically we're accessing the second, the third, and the seventh element of this 10 element length vector called y. Yeah, length. Yeah, just to confirm, yes, the length of y is 10. Again, 10, it's either from 11 to 12, right? So that's how vectors work. And if we have a much longer vector, let's say from y1 is 1 to 100, and this is another way to sequence is by separating with a colon. 1 to 100, it's the same function as this one here on line 3 now. This one, it's the same function, it's just instead of specifying these arguments, this one is just saying from 1 to 100 separated by a colon. So we do that and look at y1. So this is much more clear now, right? So this says the first element is 1, the 42nd element is 42, and then this is the 41st element here. And the only reason it's returning these things is because it's such a long vector that when it wraps around, RStudio shows you that R shows you the position here so that you can easily access or know where in this vector it is. So you can see 83 is 83 again. So if we wanted to make this a bit more 101 to 200 and look at that, then again the first element is 101, 42nd element is 142, 83rd element is 183. And the same operations as before applies here too. So we can do something like, let's access the 22nd one, the 43rd one, and the 57th. Then the 22nd one, which was 22 here, 122 comes up as 122. 143rd, yeah, 43rd element is 143. In the 57th element is 157 here. So it works, right? It just extracted 3 elements from this vector y1, and these elements are the 22nd, the 43rd, and the 57th element. So that's how this works. So if we had made this y2, let's just call this y2 now. I'm just gonna So if we make 2 vectors and we add them together, then you get the sum. So y1 was this, y2 is this, and then the sum of these is like this. So each element is added to the other element, the same element in the other vector. So this works when you've got the vector of 2 vectors of the same length, and each element is added to the other ones. And so this is how vectors work. And vectors also, you can do multiplications as well. And if you bind these vectors together, then you can start making matrices, data frames. But this is basically the basic concept of a vector. And lastly, I just wanted to bring this up, but if you access the first element of y1 or any element of y1 or vector, that is still, even if you've accessed an element within a vector, that single element object is still a vector as far as R is concerned, because everything is vector in R. So that's it for this vector video, and I hope this helps somebody. I hope you learned something. Thank you. Bye.